There's no shortage of impressive, historic building in the UK, but there's something about stately homes that are extra special. Wandering around getting as much interiors inspiration as possible, touring the rose and vegetable gardens, and then having a slice of cake in the grounds cafe, it really is a hard activity to beat on a Sunday. Hello, we've listed 15 of the most spectacular stately homes from all over the country. The good news is, you can tour each one inside and out. Hugh MothNational Trust, Polesden Lacey in Surrey, has a long history of royal visitors. The Duke and Duchess of York, later King George VI and Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother, actually spent part of their honeymoon here in 1923. The hostess, Mrs. Greville, also welcomed Edward VII and George V to the Edwardian Retreat, a grand estate. It's not just the interiors that are impressive. Polesden Lacey is actually home to one of the first ever winter gardens, designed by the late English botanist Graham Stuart Thomas. Throughout the cold season, the garden is bright with color, with beds of yellow aconites beneath Persian ironwood trees that produce blood-red buds in winter. Try and visit either in late January or early February. You'll see snowdrops blanketing the grounds and walkways. Petworth, West Sus, England. Andreas von Einsiedel National Trust. Petworth in the South Downs has arguably one of the best art collections of any stately home in the country. The staterooms teem with works by artists such as Van Dyck, Reynolds, Titian and Blake, alongside classical and neoclassical sculptures. 20 Instagram accounts every art lover should follow. It was here JMW Turner actually spent long periods of time under the patronage of the 3rd Earl of Egremont, and his paintings of Petworth Park are still on display there today, with corridors that brim with gold gilded frames. This is one of the most beautiful galleries in southern England. Tintesfield, North Somerset, England. Robstad National Trust, just a stone's throw from Bristol. Tintesfield was not built as a bold and extravagant statement of wealth, power or politics. Its purpose was simple: to serve as a family home. In 1843, however, the Gibbs family bought the house and transformed it into the Victorian Gothic Revival manor it is today. Inside you'll see an impressive gold-shelved library with an ornate, carved wooden ceiling, as well as 43 bedrooms boasting an extravagant collection of Victorian furniture, paintings and porcelain. But perhaps the most impressive side of the estate is the grand private chapel. Very few Victorians at the time had purpose-built churches of their own, so this really is one of a kind. Saltram, Devon, England. John Hammond National Trust, situated in a landscape park. Saltram overlooks the River Plyme. The Georgian mansion was the creation of the Parker family, who remodeled an earlier house to reflect their increasingly prominent position in society. The interiors are one of the finest of all stately homes in the UK, with no decadence spared. 14 of the best Orient-inspired interior pieces wander through the house, and you'll see original Chinese wallpaper with figurines adorning the walls, mid-18th century Rococo cornices, marmoreal columns holding up gilded ceilings, as well as an impressive collection of paintings, including several by Sir Joshua Reynolds. Don't forget to find and read the original correspondence between Frances, the first Countess of Morley, and Jane Austen. This really is one house where it would be fatal to just buy the grounds-only ticket. Blickling Estate, Norfolk, England. National Trust. This breathtaking red brick mansion evokes the classic idea of a British country manor. Surrounded by ancient yew hedges, it sits at the heart of a magnificent garden and historic park in the beautiful Bromeadows. Spend a day exploring the labyrinth of rooms inside, from the grand interiors upstairs to the working quarters in the basement, and after try and locate the estate's secret garden. Ickworth, Suffolk, England. Arundel de Serra National Trust, a Georgian Italianate palace. Ickworth's impressive rotunda, a magnificent showcase commissioned by the 4th Earl of Bristol to house his treasures collected on tours of Europe during the 18th century, is an architectural marvel. For 200 years, the eccentric, and sometimes infamous, Hervey family added to the treasures inside and out, also creating the earliest Italianate garden in England. Inside, it looks just like a costume drama set. The cards have been left on the bridge table, the grand dining table is laid for formal dinner, and the bedrooms are made up how they would have been. Lyme, Cheshire, England. Arundel de Serra National Trust, set on the edge of the Peak District. Lyme was once home to the Legge family and, in its heyday, a great sporting estate. Nowadays you might know it better as Pemberley, from the 1995 BBC adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. You'll find the lake where Mr. Darcy took a dip on the wider estate. Addingham, Shropshire, England. Andreas von Einsiedel National Trust, built for the first Lord Berwick in 1785. Addingham Hall and its parkland were owned by one family for more than 160 years. As their fortunes rose and fell, the house suffered golden ages and dark days. 25 of coziest autumn breaks in the UK. You can see traces of the family story throughout the estate, from the flashy but flawed picture gallery roof that contributed to the bankruptcy of the second Lord Berwick, to the prized paintings of the cattle collected by the fifth Lord, and the contrasting, masculine and feminine sides of the mansion. Hanbury Hall, Worcestershire, England. Chris MothNational Trust. Hanbury Hall was built in 1701 for a wealthy Chancery barrister, Thomas Vernon, as a country retreat in the heart of Worcestershire, designed in the William and Marie style, a style of decorative arts fashionable during the reign of William III and Mary II of England. Hanbury Hall was originally stage set for summer parties. Now it provides a glimpse into life at the turn of the 18th century. The striking dining room, which is home to a large collection of family portraits and the family silver, is impressive, as are the Hercules suite of rooms, which boasts the best view across the gardens. Don't miss the original wall paintings by Sir James Thornhill, particularly the mural of Olympian gods and the story of Achilles, which dominates the main staircase ceiling. Dig, Wrexham, Wales. Andreas von Einsiedel National Trust. Widely acclaimed as one of Britain's finest historic houses, Dig is an early 18th century country house reflecting the upstairs-downstairs life of a gentry family over 250 years. The upstairs rooms are a treasure trove of 19th century furniture, including gilt pier glasses, gilt girandoles and a state bed, as well as neoclassical textiles and wallpapers. Several floors down, though, is where you can find Dig's unique collection of servants' portraits. These were painted to celebrate loyalty, length of service as well as hard work. Today they represent a fairly rare kind of historical documentation. Tredegar House, Dufferin, Wales. James Dobson National Trust. For more than 500 years Tredegar was home to one of the greatest Welsh families, the Morgans, who owned more than 40,000 acres in Wales at the end of the 18th century. There's actually been a house on the site since medieval times, although most of the building as it stands now was constructed in the mid-17th century. Inside you'll find rooms decorated to represent various eras in the life of the house, from the 1600 SS-style gilt room, that boasts intricate golden cornices and an impressive ceiling painting, to the 1930s bedrooms, Mount Stewart, County Down, Northern Ireland. Chris MothNational Trust. Previously the home of Edith, Lady Londonderry, £8 million, and 3 years later this neoclassical house has been restored to its 20th century glory, a place where the likes of Sir Winston Churchill came to stay. It's grand and lavish. The dining room is big enough to sit over 20 comfortably, and around the table sits 22 Empire hand-embroidered chairs that were gifted to the family by the Congress of Vienna. How to add some sumptuous ruby red to your home? There's a large black and white hall that holds historic armor and a white marble head of Helen of Troy by Antonio Canova, one of the leading sculptors of the age. Not the grandest but perhaps the best is the potpourri room, though. This is where Edith dried the flowers from the garden. Who doesn't need a potpourri room? Haddo House, Aberdeenshire, Scotland. National Trust. Stately and striking, Haddo House was designed in 1732 but underwent an opulent remodeling in the 1880s. Today the Georgian exterior is instantly recognizable with the clean elegance and swooping lines, but inside the interior is strictly Victorian. The house is surrounded by a terrace garden with a lavish herbaceous border and a verdant avenue of lime trees that leads to Haddo Country Park. A colorful history. The estate was home to generations of the noble Gordons family, but during World War II, it temporarily became a maternity ward with over 1,200 babies born within its walls. Last year, a 16th-century masterpiece of the Virgin Mary, believed to be the work of the Italian Renaissance painter Raphael and worth around £20 million, was actually discovered at the property. You can now see it on display there. Hill of Tarvet Mansion, Fife, Scotland. National Trust. Previously a 17th-century house, in 1904, the owner Frederick Sharp commissioned the prolific Scottish architect Robert Lorimer to transform it into an early 20th century mansion. When the Sharp family moved into Hill of Tarvet, they had electricity, telephones connecting each room, and central heating. Lorimer also designed the landscaped gardens, with formal lawns, yew hedging, flowering borders and a sunken rose garden which you can still walk around. The smell is hypnotic. New Hiles, East Lothian, Scotland. National Trust. Tour around this Palladian house and you'll notice decorative details everywhere, from the gilded eagles over the drawing room windows to Chinese wallpaper and imposing Italian marble fireplaces. Pass through the service corridor downstairs though and you'll discover a contrasting, eerier world. The old kitchen and scullery were locked between the 1940s and the 90s, and it's been left exactly as it was, abandoned workspaces from a bygone age. In the grounds you'll find an 18th century tea house, a mysterious shell grotto and the Ladies' Walk, an elevated promenade first constructed in the 1700s. With help from the National Trust of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.